Hi, I'm Leah from SeekPass. Thank you so much for your interest in integrating with us for our Add to SeekPass integration pattern. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how to integrate with our API or what's typically involved, and then a little bit of information about how the data flows through the journey. I'll then hand over to Payam, who will run through some more of the technical details. Starting with our integration milestones. So in the initial phase of our integration, we'll collect some information from you. We have a form that includes our terms of use, which are for reviewing and accepting before we can proceed. And then we have a follow-up form for our technical details. So we ask for your whitelisting domains, a sample certificate, as well as some additional information on the credentials that you issue. Once we've received that information, then we'll be able to give you access to our API by giving you API keys, and you can start your build. When we run through the testing process, we do like to test in both staging and production, and we ask our partners to do the same to make sure that all the use cases are captured and that everyone is happy with how everything is working before we move on to launch. We'll get you to work with our partnerships team on any promotional or marketing materials to promote the integration. And then once we've launched, we'll also be able to set up some metrics to track the performance of the campaign. We'll be able to see how many users start the journey and how many users verify and share their credentials on the Seek platforms, so Seek, JobStreet or JobsDB. We'll also at this point schedule any future milestones that might be relevant. I'll give you a bit of an overview of the Add to SeekPass journey, just at a high level. You'll see it in some more detail a bit later. Essentially, you can place the Add to SeekPass button anywhere within your user journey. You could place it on your portal. We have partners that also send it through via their qualification completion emails for their users to select and add that credential to SeekPass. Once a user has pressed the button, they'll then land on this login page that'll prompt them to log in to the SeekPass platform. There'll be some information about the credential type and what the user journey is about. For this example, we've used learning and development as our credential example today. Once they've logged in, they'll be able to see the data that you've provided to us in the form of a credential. And then if there's a document included, they'll be able to also view this document, so the certificate on this page as well. They have a little disclaimer box about what information they're sharing, so they have the information available to them before they proceed. And then if they press Add to SeekPass, it will then connect and share with the Seek platforms at this point. This final step will require them to log in to Seek, JobStreet or JobsDB. However, we are working on a wider initiative within the business to streamline the sign-in. So at some point in the coming months, that step will no longer be required. They'll automatically be linked from that first login. To talk a little bit about how the data moves through, I'll just run through this slide here as well. The data fields that you provide through the API get taken through the flow and turned into a credential. The data fields for the particular credentials differ slightly, but it essentially will be the qualification name, the issue date, the issuing organisation. And for learning and development, for example, we also accept expiry fields as an optional field and the ability to add an assessment result if it's relevant. If there's a document included, that gets created into a certificate that can be viewed in the Add to SeekPass journey. And then we have a 48-hour window where a user can access the SeekPass app and save this document locally encrypted on their device. If they don't do that, they won't have access to the certificate beyond that initial 48 hours, just in line with our data retention policy, but the option is there for them. The credential will get added to JobStreet, Seek or JobsDB on the profile, and it'll be visible in two places for our hirers. The first one, when they're reviewing, when a user has applied for a job and the candidates are being reviewed, a hirer will be able to clearly see the verified credentials for each user. And then secondly, we have a database called Talent Search where hirers can proactively search for users with certain qualifications, and it'll be visible there as well. So I'll pass on now to Payam, who will run through some more technical details about the integration. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Payam. I'm a lead engineer in SeekPass. Today I'm going to talk about Add to SeekPass, the API integration, and I will also run a quick demo. If you visit our API documentation at developer.seekpass.co, you will find information about the integration journey and also the user journey. The integration journey includes two main phases. One is authentication, the other one is user data submission. In order to authenticate with our services, you will need a client ID and a client secret, which we will provide after onboarding. Once authenticated, you will need to prepare your user data in JSON format according to the relevant credential type that you will choose, such as education qualification. Then you will need to call the Add to SigPass API to submit the user data. This API will return a redirect URL, which you will use to redirect your users to our SigPass app. Also, we have provided a submission status API, which you can use to query about a submission request. Here we have listed the steps for this integration journey on this sequence diagram. We have also provided a video for you which explains the user journey. On this page you will find information about the authentication phase. We have two separate isolated environments. One is staging, which is mainly for testing purposes. The other one is production with live data. As I mentioned before, in order to call this authentication API, you will need a client ID and a client secret. Also, this API requires a field called scope, which you will need to set based on the credential type that you choose. This API returns an access token, which you require in order to call the Add to SigPass API. On this page, we have listed different credential types that we support, such as education qualification, English proficiency, learning and development, and digital ID. You will find definitions for these credential types and also some examples. Under credential types, you will find information about different credential types. For example, on this page, education qualification, we have listed a set of required and optional fields that the Add to SigPass API needs in order to create a submission request. For the education qualification, we require a full name, education provider, course name, conferral year. The rest of the fields are optional or have conditions. The Add to SigPass API also accepts a field called document. If you have a digital certificate or qualification, you can give us a link to that document. You can fill out this field with a URL or a link to that document, and we will show and render this document for users. Also, we support other types of credentials such as learning and development or micro-credential. For micro-credentials, we require full name, issuer name, micro-credential name, and an issue date. The rest of the fields are optional. Also, on these pages, you will find sample payloads for each credential type. Once you have prepared your data in JSON format for a credential type, you will need to call the Add to SigPass API with that payload in order to receive a redirect URL. Here you can find a sample request for an education qualification payload. Once the data is ready, you need to call this endpoint, replacing this credential type with the type that you have chosen. This API also requires the access token which you obtained from the previous API. We recommend using a globally unique ID, i.e. GUID. You can also use a specific format for this field for each submission in order to ensure proper tracking and management of user data. Here you can find a sample. Also, in order to download files such as PDF, JPEG, PNG files linked in the document field, please ensure that your files are publicly accessible. Also, SigPass needs to whitelist your domains in order to download the files. This API, as I mentioned before, will return a redirect URI in this format, which you will use to redirect your users to our SigPass app. Also, please note that this request and the link are valid for 48 hours, and after 48 hours the old data is deleted and a new request and record is created in our database, and the API will return a new redirect URI. Once a user clicks that link, the data will be associated with them and no other users will be able to visit that link. As I mentioned previously, we also have a submission status API which you can use to check the status of a submission. This API will return verified, cancelled, or incomplete based on the a request status. Also on this page you will find information about our branding guidelines, including some button images in 3 different languages, English, Bahasa, and Thai. These buttons can be embedded to display on your platform. You can download all the button images using this link. Also, we have provided a loading page which you can use to display to your users while waiting for API responses from us. In order to use this page, SigPass needs to whitelist your rendering domains. Finally, we have provided an OpenAPI specification page which provides detailed information about all available endpoints and credential types for your developers. I will now show you a quick demo. I have provided a request already, and this is the link. This is the SigPass app in staging. As you see, I have created a request for a learning and development credential type. On this page, users need to sign in. We use passwordless authentication for our users, so they will need to only input their email address in order to register and sign in to our SigPass app. Once users input their email address, they will need to wait to receive a one-time token in order to sign in. This is a sample email that users receive with that OTP code. On this page, as you can see, users will see information about the credential that they have been issued and that they are going to add to their SigPass account. This sample certification has been issued for this person from this university on this date. And as I mentioned before, if you have digital certificates for your users, you can use the document field in the API request to send us a link to those files. This sample request has a sample PDF certification. I now add this credential to my SigPass account. This credential has been successfully added to my account. On this page, as you can see, we encourage users to download our SigPass app on Google Store or Apple Store. Once they download the app, they will be able to see the digital certification files under this Documents tab. We don't show those documents in web for security reasons. On this page, which is the SIGPASS passport page, you can see I have already added some credentials. The credential that I just added shows up under licenses and registrations. Users can see details of their credentials. Also, users can connect their SIGPASS account with their SIG account. I have already connected my SIGPASS account with my SIG account, and as you can see, all my credentials are already shared with my SIG account. If I visit the SIG profile in staging, you can see that my credentials are displayed here. I have one education credential here and two learning and development credentials here, as you can see. This is the last credential that I added to my account. And finally, users can choose which credentials to share with their SIG account on this page.